Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of bluegrass. You've enjoyed live bluegrass at Guitar Town CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hall, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. I'm very happy to welcome Brenna Macmillan to Got Grass podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My first question always is not a musical question, but is the question of what is a perfect day off, if there is such a thing for you?
That is a very good question. It's kind of hilarious because like this year especially, but last year too, days off are very few and far between, which I know pretty much all of my friends are in similar boats, which is great. It's good to be working, but I guess perfect day off, I am able to get like 3 loads of laundry done and maybe take a walk in the sunshine, and watch one of my shows or something. That
sounds relaxing.
Yes.
Yeah, just to kind of take a little break from the chaos, I guess.
Yeah.
I have to say, I really enjoy talking to all of you great young musicians on this podcast. I've talked to a lot of your friends, or else they've played here. I've specifically talked to Bronwyn and Sarah Hall, both of whom played here quite a few times, and you're all very inspiring to me and my listeners. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for reaching out to have me on.
So a lot of the players that I've talked to grew up playing in family bands, starting when they were like 5, 6, 7 years old. I assume that you didn't, although I know you played with your brother. But what was your path to bluegrass if it wasn't like get in the bus with the family, we're going to go on tour?
Yeah, we did have a family band actually, but it was a very short time frame. When I was pretty much like 10 years old and 11, maybe a little bit into 12, but basically I'm a Kentuckian, but I'm the only Kentuckian in my family. My mom's from Texas. And so, and she's very musical. My mom's side of the family actually are like opera and classical musicians. So music was there. We sang a bunch growing up in like our toddler years and up through that 9 years old time frame. But it was in there somewhere that my pappy was like, well, you have a Kentuckian in the family and you need to have them play banjo. So it was more of like a responsibility that I start taking banjo lessons, much to my chagrin, because I was not interested whatsoever. I was like fine with the fact that I could sing harmony with my mom, and like I wasn't very ecstatic about performing and stuff because I was kind of a shy kind of a person, but it just wasn't something that that my parents were gonna let dictate anything. So,
It's funny because when you take up the fiddle as a kid, you can start off with a half-size fiddle or 3/4, but banjo, you're starting off with a full-size instrument, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty hard to reach everything.
Yes, and at the time I had 2 older brothers, and I was very competitive, so I wanted to carry my own banjo, and I also had to carry a stool because it was too heavy for me to stand and play. So I had to carry my stool and my banjo to every gig, and I was very stubborn about carrying it as well. I could have saved myself some breath and physical exhaustion, but here we are. Right. So, but yeah, so we had a little band, just mostly in Kentucky, we would play at little festivals like Pumpkin Patch or, Orchard or something. And then we did get some fun opportunities to, like, we opened for Dean Osborne and Bobby Osborne. And then we got to open for J.D. Crowe at the J.D. Crowe Festival up in Wilmore, Kentucky. And so that we did a lot of local things in those couple of years. And then my family changed a lot when I was 11. We adopted tons of my siblings. So then that was kind of something that phased out for a little while, I would say, until college. I started actually playing seriously again. So
Yeah. I was going to ask you about your siblings because it sounds pretty unusual what happened, right? I mean,
yeah, it's a little unusual. Yeah.
can you just tell me a little bit about this story, like how or why suddenly you went from a family of two kids to what, 11? Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're 3 and we grew to 12,
Oh,
and we were very close. And I guess my parents, they had been wanting to adopt because my mom couldn't have any more kids after me. Um, so they had been wanting to for a while, and then they, heard about Liberia, West Africa, which is it was actually resettled when after the Civil War, and a lot of folks went back to Africa. Like the capital's called Monrovia after
okay.
James Monroe. And so it's kind of interesting because the whole culture and heritage in Liberia has a lot of early American, influence, especially British English. So there's like just a lot of old words in the slang and everything. But then combined with local, like, tribal cultures. So it's a really cool place. But anyway, they had a really long civil war themselves, and it took the average age of the country down to 18 after that. So just a lot of orphans. And anyway, so that's how they kind of decided on that country, and that there's great need there. And it kind of grew from wanting to add another girl to, like, all of a sudden 4 more girls and 5 more boys. So
Yeah, that's I mean, I was listening to some interviews you did with various podcasters and people, and you've definitely had a pretty unusual and interesting life, fascinating life, I would say, for someone of your age. You've done a
yeah.
lot of different things and that most people
Hmm.
haven't done. And certainly that adoptive family is a pretty unusual thing.
Oh,
So did you go to Liberia yourself at any point to like or
I didn't. My dad went before we ever brought any of my siblings back here. He went just to, like, get to know them and meet them, and kind of to. There's a lot of corrupt government, as you can
Mhm.
imagine, war torn country, third world country, and so it was definitely he had to go make sure, like, that all of the things that the orphanage, was saying were true, and that we actually were doing the processes correctly and everything, because they definitely they need to be held accountable. There's a lot of crazy, you know, things that go on at these places that, like, try to take advantage of people that are just trying to add to their family and help
Right.
the world. So
So when it came to mealtime, would you all sit down together? Who would cook? Like for this is a lot of people to feed,
oh
right?
yeah. Well, we of course had a Sam's Club membership. And
Yeah.
uh we most of my siblings, and this was kind of another thing that my parents had it on their hearts, like, not to adopt babies, but older kids that don't get adopted, and so or don't usually get adopted. um so a lot of my siblings were plenty old enough to know how to cook and bring a lot of culture into the household. So we actually kind of had a little Liberia at our house because um, as far as culture, it was all outnumbered, and uh, basically we ate a lot of African food
Mm.
and like played African games, sang African songs, uh, and my parents were like, "You guys have to speak good, clear English with your siblings," and we were like, "No." So it was a very heavily African influenced culture in the house, and that I think has a lot to do with how I speak now, which I do pretty good on stuff like this when I'm like slowing down on purpose. But it definitely wasn't great for my grammar. I'll say that.
It must have been pretty cool though, having that culture and food and stuff like right mixed in with your life. I mean, like no, I'm sure none of your neighbors had that. Like you were just a little island of coolness in the middle of rural Kentucky. Kind of.
Yeah, well, imagining having a lot of like um, black people all of a sudden in your family in Winchester, Kentucky, it raises a lot of eyebrows in the town and in the neighborhood. So there was a lot of different things that we had to deal with. But in all the end, I think our neighborhood thrived because they also, like, all the kids would come over to our house and play with us because you already have pretty much two teams for any game. So you just add a few neighborhood kids in, and it was a blast for us kids, and the adults were just kind of like confused what was going on. Were we an orphanage? We got like several older folks that had some things to say, and rumors were that we were running an illegal orphanage, uh,
Oh, yeah.
because that's what you do, but you know
Yeah, I get it. It's interesting because I grew up in Connecticut in a small suburban, almost all white town, and
mhm.
we had black neighbors down the street who with 9 kids, and we hung around there all the time. Like that was
Yeah,
what I thought was cool. I didn't want to be with my stupid family. I wanted to be with these kids because they were different and more fun and had all these adventures and things. Like they were on a little river, and that's the stuff we used to do. My mom and dad knew nothing about, and that was fine. We had a separate little
yeah, so
cultural
you were like
mecca.
one of the neighborhood kids in our neighborhood, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So let's talk about your brother and your duo with him.
Oh yeah.
Um, do you think you would ever want to try to replicate that brother sister sound with your music, or is that just impossible to do? Like that harmony and the whole kind of phrasing that you have as a sibling.
Yeah, I mean, we are of course siblings, but Theo and I are especially close. We've been through everything together in our lives, and we've also sang together since like I was 2 and he was 3. So, you know, we've I think we have something very special, and that's why I had him sing a lot of harmony on my record, because I was like, there's no one else that, I am in Nashville, which is awesome because I have access to the best of the best in every, arrangement. And a lot of these people are my friends now, which is awesome. But when it comes to harmonies, like, I was like, there's no one I want besides Theo on this, because you can't get better than that as far as like matching, together. I mean, I think that, it was actually his idea, something to step back from our duo. He wanted to travel less on the weekends and start a family and everything. So he's done that and he's doing great. And he's writing a bunch for bluegrass artists. Like, you'll hear a lot of stuff on XM that he's written. He writes with John Weisberger a lot, and so he likes being in that realm and still being a part of the community, but just not traveling as much and having to deal with all the stress that comes along with like leading a band. It is a lot, um, but I mean, whenever he'll let me have him, I like to snag him for harmonies and different things. And I also made him play piano on the record too, because that was his first instrument growing up. And that's kind of like my most fond instrument, hearing him play, is piano. So I was like, hey, well, now that I'm in charge, you have to play piano.
I saw a video of you with one of your bands at the station and doing a version of "Be My Baby," the old Ronettes song from
Yeah.
the early mid '60s, and I was kind of impressed that somebody your age would even have known about that song. Like, do you go out searching old pop songs from the past and try to kind of make them into your own style? Is that something you do?
Um, no, so besides our crazy family and everything, my parents also were like really bent on us absorbing the highest form of social culture. So we grew up only watching black and white movies for a really long time. Probably around the time of adoptions, it changed a little because they wanted to introduce some of the, pop culture references that would teach my siblings how to acclimate and everything. But like before that, it was pretty much all, Cary Grant movies, Gary Cooper, you know, Singing in the Rain, Sinatra, all that stuff. Shirley Temple, you know, and Andy Griffith Show, which is of course where I first heard bluegrass. But I think that through that, it was kind of similar in music. We mostly listened to classical and Christian music growing up, but my mom does love like 60s, 70s, 80s things. So we're very, when we've covered Paul Simon too, it was like because we grew up hearing him, you know.
Right,
Uh,
right. I mean, I'm always fascinated by musicians these days have to wear a lot of hats, especially if you're leading a band. You have to be a lot of things to a lot of people. Missy Raines was just here with her band. You probably know some of her band
uh,
mates. I'm sure you do. She told me that sometimes in smaller gigs, the merchandise sales make the difference between breaking even and making a little money, which I thought was kind of shocking given her
oh,
stature. But I mean, I guess that's just the nature of the business now. Unless you're really hugely famous, it's always a struggle to like keep a band going and pay people and all that, right? I mean, it's
oh yeah.
tough.
Yeah, it is like it's kind of wild how little bands and artists get paid by venues. And a lot of times there's some type of arrangement with the door. So part of that is on you to promote that you're going to be there and everything. But a lot of times there's not even a guarantee, which is kind of insane. If you're taking like four people on the road with you and you're going where there's not even a guarantee, or it's maybe like $200 or $400, even $700, it's like, depending on how far away it is and if you have to get hotels and how many hotel rooms do you have to get and did you have to rent a van, it's like, well, yeah, if we can sell some merch, that's going to make it to where you can pay yourself back slightly after you paying the bank and all the other expenses. It's it is insane.
It
uh
is insane. I mean, I've been doing this, putting on shows for 17 years. We've had a lot of young bands come through, and I always just marvel at the fact they all drive in a van together. Sometimes they would sleep here. Lots of bands have slept here in my
yeah,
house because, I offer and they say, sure, we're happy. We'll sleep on the couch. We don't have the money for hotels, and I get it. And
yeah.
nowadays, especially with the cost of gas and food and strings and everything else, it's a kind of a intimidating thing, I would think, to take on running a band on touring.
There's like, I feel like two or three times a year, maybe more, just depending. You'll get a gig that's like, 5K guarantee or 10K guarantee, and it's like some random thing. And people will hear about that and like, wow, you can make so much money. And it's like, well, you can, but you're not getting that every night. You're usually playing somewhere that doesn't even, give you hardly anything. Those are all the fill in dates. And then you have one,
Right. One
gig.
one money maker.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's a big delusion that I guess that people, touring musicians, are making a lot of money, especially in bluegrass. I mean, it's just, I know
yeah.
it ain't happening. I see so many bands.
Yeah. But merch is where that, like, man, if you have creative ideas, and if you can basically get to the table as quick as possible, it's even better if you can split your set, like, so you have an intermission to sell, um, you know, so that, because so many people just don't want to like wait around at the end in
Yeah,
line.
well, I always insist. The bands lots of times will say, "Should we have two sets?" I say, "You have to have two sets because that's when you're going to sell your merch is in the intermission. At
Yeah,
the end, a lot of people just want to get up and go home, especially
right.
if they're older and they're it's
And
late. But
I like to go home too. So
everybody does. Um, so what is East? I keep hearing a lot about East Nashville, and there's the band East Nash Grass, and a lot of the people that play around there I know or have played here. But what's the secret to East Nashville that's making it so um, I don't know, hip or fun or whatever it is?
I don't know. My own little opinion is that it's kind of like there's been these waves, kind of like graduating classes that have been moving to Nashville. Every few years, there's like a new wave of like early 20s musicians or whatever. And that's simply from my observation of that happening since I've moved here. And I've only lived here 7 years. And I know
Mhm.
people here way longer and observe different patterns. But um, like, I think in 2018, which was my wave of moving here, like, it seemed like tons of my peers now also moved to Nashville at that time, and kind of that became all of the throw together bands around town were made up of that wave. All of the local gigs where it's like last minute calls all started being like this certain community of people that are similar at where they're at in life. And then now, in the last couple of years, almost all of those people are now touring full time with a more like secure band setup. And there's a new younger wave that now they are kind of like the whole um, bands in town thing. And I'm like between the two of those because I don't know, I'm just doing a lot. Like, I'll still play at this bar gig here in town on the one night that I'm home or whatever. But um, I switched from, I had a day job for my first 5.5 years here. I'm a chemist. And so I was doing that plus playing in town. And that was kind of more what I was able to do. But now, since last year, I've only been doing music. So now I'm traveling way more. Um, so anyway, that. But I think it's kind of the waves and the way the community forms through playing together, being able to play together because you're in a town that books so much live music. There's like people playing multiple nights a week always, and you just get to know people really well, and then that's how some really great groups are formed, and it's like a whole culture thing.
I guess that's the beauty of bluegrass, really, that no other music has in that way. It's
Hmm.
all about people getting together and playing together and jamming and becoming friends. And there's no other
Yeah.
music I can think of that does that. I mean, if you're classical, you're going to Juilliard or whatever, and it's very highly structured. And if you're jazz, you're in New York. But here, it seems like Nashville is and bluegrass is like a beautiful blend of the best in community and music, which I think we really need these
Oh,
days.
it really is. Like, I mean, that's the thing holding so many people here because it's like, we've all moved here almost. I mean, there's not that many natives. We've all moved here from probably not city life.
Mhm.
And now we have all these like people that grew up kind of free to roam, stuck in the city together. But what's holding us together is the culture and the community and the opportunity to get together with the new young people that are as enthused as you are, but also the older folks who have already done it all that are still here in Nashville that are like staple studio musicians, or they're just with a Nashville touring act, you know, or they're in the Opry band and they hang out with us and jam with us and teach us things of wisdom.
Right. I was talking to Missy about playing bass and singing lead because she leads her band. She said, "Boy, it's really hard to play bass and sing lead because the bass is thumping along in tempo, and the voice is going all over the place.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
was wondering if the banjo was a similar like challenge, because you're basically keeping up these rolls and things with your right hand, and yet your singing is not, is your phrasing is completely sometimes off the beat. Is that a challenge for you to sing, or what is the challenge for you about singing? Is there one?
Um, well, it's funny that you asked that because like I hadn't thought a whole lot about singing until recently, since it was just a thing that we always did. So then now a lot of my friends, you know, are getting stuff out of taking vocal lessons and different things. And I'm like, oh, you're like, maybe I should like hone in some stuff and figure out like how I could optimize breathing and just different things that I can tell, especially after a 4-hour gig or something, that I'm like, okay, what could I have done to save my voice a little bit? Maybe just not play the 4-hour gig, but um, I guess like I didn't used to play banjo and sing at the same time. I started doing that maybe about halfway through college. And I find that rolling is a lot easier for me than chunking rhythm. Like, and I think that's probably similar to what Missy was saying. It's like that's just such a static thing, and it needs to be static to keep the timing for everybody. But when you're trying to be creative vocally, or not really trying, but phrasing is a whole different thing, and it needs to be a whole different thing. Otherwise, that's extremely boring. So, like, I think I found that like when I'm just rolling, which when you're a banjo player, these rolls are just motor muscle memory. Like, you know, by the time you've reached a certain point, I guess. Like, so, like, just simple rolls being continuous underneath the singing, I find that way easier because it's not as static. There's still a lot of movement, um,
Right.
but I don't have to worry about it as much. And people will probably be like, "Well, then that's why your timing sucks now." But I probably should worry, but it's
Uh-huh.
a little easier. I feel like to juggle, being free to move around vocally if you're kind of just getting like that syncopated thing going behind your fingers.
Yeah, yeah. You put out your first solo album, Dear Life, last fall.
Yeah.
Um, what do you have to say about that? I mean, it's I've heard most of it. It's wonderful. I love so many things about it in so many different ways. You got great players. Your songwriting I like too.
Huh.
What's your take on that album? Like, how do you feel about it now, looking back on 6 or 8 months ago? Are you thrilled? Still
Yeah,
thrilled with it? Yeah.
I think so. I think like um well, through making that album, it gave me a whole different passion that I didn't even realize I had. Like I'm kind of like a laid back person, and I really love the idea of just being a sideman for my entire life. But at the same time, when I made that record, I was like, I kind of got the bug to like not just be a sideman for the rest of my life, because I really want to play these songs for people. And I also just, I get bored really easily. And so I really like having whatever the heck I wanted on all of those tracks. There's not really one thing going on for the whole track. Besides that most of it's made up in my brain. But like, you know, some things need to be interpreted as more folky, and some maybe old time, even though I don't even play what I consider good old time clawhammer. And like, then some need to be straight ahead, and then some might feel kind of country or something. And it's like, why does there have to be one genre on an album? I guess it doesn't matter. Like, I would
Yeah.
get bored if it was only one thing going on.
So
Because
who produced that album for you? Did you produce it, or did like usually
yeah.
produce? You did it.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's why you could. Nobody was saying to you, it's a little too folky. It's a little
Right.
too wide ranging. Let's try and focus here. You just did what you felt was
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
and that comes through. and that's rare because most albums are kind of in my opinion, kind of overproduced with a certain sound or message, and sometimes it does get a little boring after 7 bluegrass songs in a row that all the same tempo. I don't know.
Well, I can't say the same for like, other people's music, but I felt like for the songs that I was writing, they just needed some different things going on for them to come across how I wanted them to. And
Mm-hmm.
and all of those songs I wrote, they're very reflective of kind of like what I've been going through in my 20s. And I'm already excited about the next record because I've been writing so much different stuff right now. I'm entering a new chapter, and like this next one might, and I don't know when I'm going to do that. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what's going on there, but like it's going to sound way different and it's going to be really cool. But if, as you're saying, like, how do you feel about it? Are you still thrilled? Yeah, because I feel like it depicts like how I felt for the majority of my 20s, the kind of season of growth I was in, some things I needed to like dig up and analyze. And I've gotten it all out. And now it's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to be able to listen back to that when I'm like 60 or 70 or 80 and be like, wow, oh yeah, that's what it was like. you know,
I believe you. Yeah. So you wrote a song, did a beautiful video, a song called Adelaide,
oh,
in which you dance, and the dancing reminds me of I have 3 daughters. The youngest
oh,
one's 17, so it reminds me of her. But um, I can tell from that song you have a very kind of kind and giving heart. It comes through very strong. I mean, it just seems it's a very moving song.
yeah.
Um, it sounds like, and I don't want to pry into your life, but you've gone through some ups and downs in your life. Do you mind talking about any of your personal challenges and how you were able to kind of get through them, or is I don't want to pry, but I'm curious because I know everybody has ups and downs and things they go through, and some people don't want to talk about it. Some do because it's good to get it out, and sometimes other people are helped by it. Um, I
Yeah.
felt that
Well,
that song Adelaide was kind of like a song about being aware of people's issues and trying to help them through it. And did somebody help you through some issues that made a big difference in your life?
yeah, I think that like that song, I say it's about mental health, and it is, but I certainly got the idea for it when I was going through some dark stuff, and then realized how it feels to be in that, where you don't really want to feel as crappy as you do, but you can't help it. Like you might just be sad and like nothing can cheer you up, and you're like, I know this is not me, but it also is what I'm feeling. I think that was a season that I was like, other people that I've known that have more outwardly struggled with mental health disorders or conditions or diagnosis, um, I was able to feel more empathy and compassion towards them, whereas before I was kind of, you know, due to my relationship with them and the time of life that I interacted with them, which I might have been younger and just not, you're not an adult yet. You're thinking, why can't you just snap out of it, and get things done that you need to get done, and like help out with this thing or whatever, and there's some indignation that you feel when you think someone else needs to like do something differently, of course, in a way that would positively impact the people around them. And when you see that they're kind of negatively impacting people around them, you're frustrated, right? So I guess it was understanding that, okay, sometimes you get stuck in a funk and you just might be a little useless to everybody around you, or unable to do the things that would be the best for you to do, you know. Um, so I kind of wrote that as an acknowledgement that, hey, I know stuff's really heavy now, you know.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of it. Like, I don't know where it needs to land for people hearing it, but it's more of like, oh no, life's hard enough to knock you out sometimes, and I see that there's not much you can do about it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've all been through friends and family who've had mental issues or addictions, and it is frustrating because sometimes it seems so just snap out of it is like a common thing. Just snap out of it, but you can't. And sometimes people just don't snap out of it. I mean, some people just die. You know,
Yeah,
it's a sad reality. I know I certainly have people in my family that happened too. They just couldn't get out of addiction, and that was it.
yeah.
Um, yeah. You have another song which I've heard called "I Used to Live Here," which I also am very fond of, and it reminds me a little bit of a duo called the Honey Dewdrops. Do you know them? They're in Baltimore. Kagi and Laura. They're a married couple. They've been touring together as a duo for a long time. They were
Nice.
teachers and they liked each other and liked singing together. And it
Oh,
just reminded me of their sound. I don't know. I don't know if you know about them, but
I
a different part of the world, I guess, Baltimore than East Nashville.
it, it is a little far.
Yeah. When you think about your music career, is there anybody that you idolize or whose kind of career you'd like to emulate? Like, do you see anybody as a model for where you want to go in
I'd
particular?
be Keith Whitley, which wasn't such a good
Ooh,
to idolize, and I am sober now, so that's good.
yeah, yeah.
But let's see. Now, I mean, I guess I have heroes. I'm not much of a goal setter myself. I just kind of like do stuff and then get excited about things randomly and then decide to do stuff. But so I don't know like whose vibe I would want to emulate the most, but I certainly love Alison Krauss. Like,
Hmm.
and I think I basically just want to, and maybe like, she's not bluegrass, but like Madison Cunningham.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I look up to her a lot, and Sarah Jarreau is one of my biggest vocal influences and heroes growing up. But like, it's like I kind of just want to be able to get to a level where people are listening to the songs that I'm singing. And you kind of have to not be at that level for a while. You have to play a lot of gigs where people don't really give a rip about the words or whatever for a while in order to get to a place where, okay, now you kind of get to choose your audience. But I don't, yeah, if anybody has any answers of how to choose your audience from an early stage and make a living still, um, that
Yeah,
would
I
be,
was going to ask you, like, how do you? I mean, everybody, obviously, well, people are going to leading bands and writing songs. Obviously, want to be successful, right? You want to make a living at it and be well known and have people hear your music. But the question of how you do that, I guess it just happens or it doesn't. I don't know if there's any magic bullet there.
yeah, I
I
do.
don't know.
It's like when my lab job ended last year, I was like, well, I could either get another lab job and continue juggling this style of stress, or I could try to make my living just music related. But in that, it's been very interesting. I did my whole tax season. I know how much stuff I did, and it was like so much. Like, it's just more, it's so nice to make your own schedule, but it's more hustling, and then all of a sudden every single thing you do is music related, so you have to be careful not to choose those things that make you money that also cause you to get burnout. Like, you don't want the joy of why you're choosing to live your life doing this thing to get muddied out with like, well, I have to take all this other like these other kinds of gigs that make me hate my life, because you don't want to start hating your life when it has to do with music. So I guess like I've been trying to traverse the, okay, teach lessons route, take more gigs route, say yes to every gig basically.
Mhm.
Do more studio work. What are the things that don't burn me out but make enough money for the time that I'm giving to them while trying to go choose an audience to tell my story.
Right. Yeah. I think it was Duke Ellington who probably at one point talked about this. He said, you have to play the commercial music so you can afford to play the music you really like to play. I mean, he
Yeah.
was saying that, of course, it was a different era. He was a black musician in a different time, big
Mm.
band leader with like, 25 people in his band. But he said, I just can't play what I like all the time because I can't make a living out. I have to play what the people want, and then I can, go do what I want. And
Right.
maybe that's still true to a degree. I mean, like I say, you don't want to like play just crap just to survive. you
I
know.
I get I play the gigs where I get the requests for Rocky Top or Wagon Wheel and things. Nothing wrong with those songs. They're actually good songs. But obviously they're the style that people want to hear that don't probably care to hear the other deep cuts you have.
I just had Mason Vaya on my podcast who sang that song for many years with Old Crow. I kind of asked him, I said, do you get tired of that? He said, well, no, because the people love it. And, it made us good money and it
It,
was fun. People sang along. It was like it was a different thing. They weren't really listening to it. It was like a communal singing. It was like sing along at the campground, kind of thing. And so he said it was fun in its own way.
yeah, yeah. And that's the deal. I mean, if I had a hit like ever in my life that the whole world wanted to sing along to all the time,
Hmm.
I guess I'd freaking play it.
You probably would. You
No.
probably would. Yeah, I heard Paul McCartney interviewed, and he said I went to hear Tom Petty and his band. He said, and all I want to do is hear his hits. I don't want to hear him experiment. I want to hear the Tom Petty hits. And so that's what he does. He play the people. I play the same song 60,000 times
Mhm.
yesterday, but that's what they want to hear, and I'm going to play it because that's the audience keeps me alive.
Yeah.
So I guess you have to kind of go along somewhat.
Yeah.
But I think a big hit would be nice for you.
Oh, that would be great. Anytime
Um,
it wants to give.
Anytime, yeah, if anyone's listening. Is there anybody in the history of music that you would love to go back in time and play with, perform with, or sing with? Any anyone you can think
I'd
of?
like to go back and see Tony Rice play and sing live. Um, I'm such a huge fan, and I never got to see him live. Same with John Hartford. Um, Same with Earl Scruggs. Like that would have been probably life changing as their music has been for me. Uh,
Yeah,
I guess there's a lot of people that I just would want to see live. Um, and then if we had the opportunity to play together, that'd be a second tier priority, but that'd be
right.
awesome. But I just
Yeah,
want to hear them live, like, and it's just so different when you're absorbing something live, you know.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because John Hartford was my next question to ask you if he was one of the people that you were influenced by or really admired. I know
Yeah,
you do at least one of his songs, but I figured he was somebody that you liked.
yeah, I do. I also, I think, as part of the East Nashville heritage or whatever, like you know, uh, in Madison, which I live in Madison now, and I did also a couple of years ago. But a couple of years ago, I lived even closer to John Hartford's house than I do now, which is still like really close. And I guess during that time, like it was kind of just something in the air of the neighborhood or something. Like I felt like there's just a lot of creative energy, like uh being put off in this area. And I mean, Madison's kind of like where broke musicians have lived for I don't know, like 30 years or 40 years. And so, um, the cemetery there has so many people buried that are heroes, and John Hartford being one of them. And so being able to go to his grave or go like stare at his house and stuff like that, and being right on the Cumberland, just kind of, I took a deeper dive into all of his music, and I love him and Dave Evans both, I would say, would be, if I'm trying to sound like anyone by way of realizing I kind of sound a little like them in the loose banjo playing and random singing, then those are who I kind of like feel like I vibe with in here or something. Like, you know,
I hear that. I hear that. I hear that in you. Yeah. I mean, John Hartford, yeah, definitely um, ran to his own tune or whatever, beat to his own drum. But
mm,
he just became like Tony Rice, so iconic and beloved. Tony Rice was my hero too, and he played the first gig we ever did at Guitar Town. He played up here, and he played here 4 times
wow.
for us, which was absolutely amazing. But he had this kind of, I don't know what it was, aura about him that just you just wanted to be near him, and just it was something. I can't explain it. What?
Yeah. Star
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But something else with him, I mean, it was just, I don't know what it was. I couldn't, I've asked many musicians who played with him, and they said, no, I don't know either, but I just know whenever Tony was in the room, everybody played better when we played with him. We all played our best all the time. For whatever reason, he drew it out of us, which I
Yeah.
thought was cool.
I would feel like John Hartford and Dave Evans, if you were playing in a jam with them, maybe not everyone's playing better, but it would be like everyone's playing more relaxed and taking more uh risks, because their posture like is that anything can be tasteful or artistic if you do it casually and confidently. Like it's like this whole thing. And so like I didn't necessarily hear their music till I, or like dive into it until I was living here in Nashville. But like the first time I heard a Dave Evans song, I was actually learning one to play with Vicky Vaughn. And I was like, whoa, I just feel like connected to this. And similarly with John Hartford's music, I'm just like, yeah, you can sing about a washing machine. You can sing about stuff that you think might have happened. It's like, there aren't rules, and I like that. I'm not a fan of rules myself. So I like that style of just being like, yeah, we're making art.
Yeah, that's funny. Actually, Vicky Vaughn is my next podcast interview. It's funny you should mention her.
Well, tell her hello for
I
me.
will. I will. I think it's the end of next week. She said when I first called her, said I don't have any free time for 30 days. I'm
Yeah.
completely booked for 30 days. So just glad she's busy.
Yeah.
Um, so you say you don't have visions or goals for yourself. You kind of live your life and just. I mean, I'm the same way. I never really had a vision for my life either. And here I am. I'm 72 years old, and I'm saying, what are you going to be when you grow up? I don't know.
You
But
do not do, by
I
the
am.
way.
I just turned
I
it. But I mean, okay, so you live your life just live, and if you get an opportunity, you grab it. But you don't really have a goal for yourself. Like in 5 years, I want to be whatever.
yeah, I mean, I would love to play the Opry sometime, preferably my own music.
Mm.
That'd be cool. Um,
How do you get that to happen? Like, how does that happen for someone?
I think, well, it seems to me that, you might get asked to play on WSM in a morning show, and then, like it depends if you get connected with anyone at the Opry, kind of. Maybe it's by recommendation. It's hard to tell here in town, like, but I mean, so many of my friends have played the Opry in the last few years, so it's not a crazy idea. Uh, whereas before it kind of seemed a little further out of reach, but I think you just, I don't know, the right person has to get you in the door there. And so it's not even like you have to be playing 100 dates a year. It just kind of is like, depends on, which is a cool thing about the Opry because, the staff, most of the staff have been there for so long. You know, I've listened to the morning show. Well, when I was doing my 9 to 5, I listened to it every day for like 4 years straight or something. Uh, and and I know those people have a lot to do with the sounds that are welcomed onto the Opry too. So I think that's cool.
Yeah. You could always get married there like Bronwyn did.
I could, I
That's
could,
one way to get on there, right?
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You know what? I hadn't thought of that. Maybe I'll go
Okay.
get married there this
There
summer.
you go. There you go. Just to get. So a little change of topic here, but I heard you on an interview refer to yourself as an American result. I heard you say that phrase, I'm an American result. And I don't know if that was just something you threw out there in the spur of the moment, but I thought it was a pretty profound thing to say, especially in these times when people are being targeted and hassled and deported for just being themselves. I thought that was a pretty, I don't know if you just threw it out there like I'm American result, like just came off the tip of your tongue, but I thought that was a very profound way to talk about yourself. I don't know.
Oh, well,
It was good. It affected me a lot. That phrase.
I'm glad.
Wow.
I guess I did throw it out there because I can't even remember. But I think that probably comes. My sisters, who all don't look like me, would always call me a plain American blonde, and so like, and sometimes in a positive, sometimes in a negative, whatever. But like, I think being the only one in my family born in Kentucky, I don't have like real roots there. My dad's a Yankee Jew from Ohio. My mom's a Southern Belle from Texas, and then I was randomly born up there because my dad went to UK for his master's degree and ended up getting raised there too. But then I have all these, siblings from Liberia, and so I kind of just feel like I'm just an American, like just
Yeah.
like a, American result of the randomness that can happen because you live here and there's so many different people groups and all kinds of cultures going on. And yeah, like, I think there's so many different versions of Americans that I would all say are American results, which is
I
cool.
think I think that I mean, I don't know. I think there's a song in there.
Oh, maybe so. Maybe so.
There's a lot that could come out of that simple 3-word phrase. I don't mean to make a big deal about it because you probably just said it, that, whatever. But
Yeah.
I just thought it was very potent. Do you see yourself or your music as being political in any way these days, or just music?
I think so. Um, I, yeah, because like that's, of course, an interesting thing. But I do like a lot of musicians who historically were like, you know, able to accomplish something. I think I think provoking thoughts is the best thing you can do through art politically. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just get people thinking about each other. And I think that's reasonable because you're not going to change a lot of adults' minds about anything. And who's to say you're right and they're wrong, or they're right and you're wrong? Like,
Mm-hmm.
things change all the time. So obviously, there's not one answer politically. So I wouldn't want to tout my opinions, but I do like the thought of making people think about each other, and about God and love, and you know, looking outside of yourself sometimes, like,
Mm-hmm.
in to realize, like, maybe I don't know everything. That's kind of like what's to come is around. It's like, well, I grew up like this and I don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, it's good to be open-minded if you can. It's kind of hard, especially these days, to be open-minded because there's so much stuff coming at you, and you kind of have to take a side. But I think it's important to see other people as humans, regardless of what they say or believe, or you think they believe.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's
Well,
hard to do.
I would say it might be harder for people who didn't grow up as a buffer betwixt many arguing siblings. I think that's helpful
Uh,
for staying open minded and not taking sides, but being there for all the people involved. Because, like, I was kind of that between, I think a lot of my siblings have stronger personalities and opinions and um, sensitivities than I do. And so I was often not on the receiving end of anything annoying, but some of my siblings would be, and then they'd both come to me and then they'd get mad that I didn't take their side, but then I would say something and then maybe they would go apologize or something, like, so it was kind of like I know how to like live that middle ground world without feeling all the stress that is associated with like both sides.
right,
uh,
right.
that's a little blessing in disguise for having a million siblings.
Yeah, right. You're always in the middle of something.
Yeah.
You seem very in tune with yourself. So that's impressive to me.
Oh,
Um, any plans for a New England tour at some point, or are you sticking around that area for a while?
I hey, if anybody wants to book me, they can. Like I would love to. I just was on the road with East Nashgrass up on a Northeast tour, and man, I hadn't been out there since I visited like my dad's side of the family, some bar mitzvahs up in Pennsylvania and New York when I was pretty small, which now those are fun. Those are
My wife's Jewish, so I've been to quite a
oh
few.
yeah, yeah, it is a party.
Yeah.
And but anyway, it was cool to revisit those areas like as an adult and see how diverse America is. I went straight from that trip to Hawaii. So and I was like, whoa, America
Mm-hmm.
is insane. like so like I
Yeah.
couldn't understand people in New York and I couldn't understand people in Hawaii and vice versa. And for all of it to be America, I was like, this is cool. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it is. It is a great country in that sense. There's
yeah.
so much variety of thoughts. Anything you'd like to talk about that we didn't discuss as our hour winds down? You want to
Um,
any parting words of wisdom or whatever?
well, let's see. I mean, I since I got the bright idea recently, just wanted to play more of my songs out there. If any of your listeners do like my stuff, let me know because I'll try to come play to them and choose an audience that wants to hear my stuff. Yeah, I guess I would just encourage everybody to like do things that you want to do and don't build resentment just because you're choosing not to do them. You know, I think that's like an important thing. Basically, I've been thinking about that a lot since becoming full time music because so many people are complaining about their jobs. And it's like, well, if you don't enjoy it, come be broke with me. No, like, obviously not everyone can afford to be broke and live like that. But if they want to, they might be happier. Um, but like,
Yeah.
it's like, then don't do that anymore. Do something you enjoy. Life is way too short, and unpredictable. And you don't know if you be taken to another mental level by some genetic or accident thing. You don't know how long you're going to have your faculties. And so instead of suffering and looking forward to retiring, just live your life and enjoy it.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. I mean, it gets harder to live your dream as you get older because, complicating things come in like spouses and families and homes and blah, blah, blah. You got to do it when you're younger. At least you can keep at it if you're a lucky kind of person that can do it. Most people end up settling in or settling for something a little more structured. And it's hard to be a free spirit your whole life, but
I can imagine, but
well,
see how it goes for me.
Well, good luck. I mean, keep writing. I really think that that phrase of yours, "An American Result," I don't know if it's a song title, but just something about it is I think you're going to come up with a song for that one.
Oh, well, thanks. I will chew on that.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And I hope to see you at some point up here in Connecticut, maybe down the road. Good luck with your band and all your pursuits. And it was really, really fun and nice talking to you. So thanks.
Yeah, you as well.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take it off here and talk to you another time.
Alrighty.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.